Good afternoon. Good evening. We want to welcome all of you to SKTV. In a very short moment, we will be sharing the show. We want to welcome you this afternoon to our teaser. Next week is I don't want to say original, it's the official kickstart of um, the mental health series that we will be having. We intend to have a lot as we go further. It would be interactive, but I want to use this time to welcome all of you to SKTV. As you're already aware, um, we are also airing on YouTube. I want to welcome all of you. Share the show, share the show, and share the show. Today, um, this conversation is going to be very, very non-political, very interactive as much as possible. We will try our best to allocate time at the end of the show to see if we can have some calls here just to either get a reaction, allocate a minute or two. But we overall want to welcome all of you to SKTV. Today, again, the teaser we're kickstarting with mental health and wellness. I want you to share the show and invite other people. We're going to be talking about grief. We've heard this word all around the place: grief, 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 and grief. I want to start a show today with mental health and grief. A lot to talk about, to be very honest, a lot to learn, a lot to go over today. But we want you to share the show, invite someone. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a social. Let's have a psychological. Let's have a counseling. Let's have a scientific, evidence-based conversation. A lot more to talk about today, to be very honest with you. We have a lot to talk about in a very short period of time. We are looking at having this conversation for maybe an hour or just a little bit over an hour. We want to talk about grief. Most of the times we either shy away from it. But in order to talk about it, there are a lot of things that we got to talk about that constitute that word grief. We try to break some words down so that it can make sense to the simplest form for anyone else who will watch or follow us later. Let's invite other people. Let's invite someone. Let's share the show. We are about to have the opportunity to share the show. We're going to play a music that will enable us to share the show. And then right after we get back, we will get into the conversation. We will recognize one or two people on the live feed here who are either participating via the comment sections. So as you comment, your name will pop up and we'll be able to recognize you. But hey, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for wanting to have this conversation. It's been long overdue. A lot of friends, family member, loved ones, people we're connected with reached out to us and they've told us, since, it's been long overdue, to be honest, that we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. Finally, we've put together a time that we are going to allocate to be able to do this. Hopefully, by the grace of God, on every Fridays for now. On a weekly basis, we're going to do this. I'd like to say, just before we go to the musical break, to say thanks to our team here on SKTV for making this possible and for giving out the slot. I want to send out a special shout out. Use that word. Shout out to Sekou Kane. Shout out to him. Shout out to Telco. Telco is on. She's in the back doing all the different work there. Shout out to Telco, for being very supportive. She's been one of the people that have been pushing me from the back that we must do this, we must do this, we must do this. Get away from politics. Let's talk about some of these social issues and so forth. So yes, we're vested into this as much as we can, and we'll do everything we can again to stick with this and do what's needed. So when we come back from the break, we'll recognize one or two people as you comment. We will go ahead, we'll lay the ground rules down as to some of the expectation just before we get into the conversation here. So let's get into a song here that we'll use to share the show. Thank you so much, and let's share the show.
First time I saw your face, I knew I was in love. Baby, your smile takes my breath away. And they can say what I want, girl, I don't mind, as long as you are by my side. Baby, you smile of paradise. Baby, girl, come be my love life. How many times do you want me to say I love you? Cause then I tell the world I do. Even you want me, girl, I do. Baby, girl, come be my love life. Inikuma. Yega ampa ilikuwa. In any way, you will come on. How many times do you want me to say I love you? Cause when I tell the world I do. Even you want me, girl, I do. Baby, girl, come be my love for life. How many times do you want me to say I love you? Cause when I tell the world I do. Even you want me, girl, I do. Baby, girl, come be my love for life. I need no painkiller, cause you took my pain away. You don't need umbrella, I will take the rain away. Inikuma. Yega ampa ilikuwa. In any way, you will come on. How many times do you want me to say I love you? Cause when I tell the world I do. Even you want me, girl, I do. Baby, girl, don't be my love for life. How many times do you want me to say I love you? Cause when I tell the world I do. Even you want me, girl, I do. Baby, girl, don't be my love for life.
Well, something different, something out of the ordinary today. Let me lay some ground rules down really quick before we move any further into this conversation. If you have the opportunity, you can grab a notebook, a notepad, or whatever it is to write some things down, whatever. Let's lay some ground rules down. Please, no insults on here, no curse words, no cursing anyone. If you have any kind of difference with anyone, please, let's try to address it out of here. That's the first thing. The second thing also is, please, let's do our best. Even in our disagreements, let's be disrespectful. We will not and we cannot assure any kind of confidentiality if you choose to write your own story on here. We will not be held responsible for it, just so you know. It will be at your own risk and at your own detriment. We want to be clear on that. Another thing also wanted to point out to you is while you're on here, it's okay to feel free to reach out to us. You can post your questions, your comments. We'll try to go through it as we can, as much as we can, and if we can capture it, we would. In the back end, I know Tel will follow the comment sections and so forth. So if there is something that is burning or whatever it is, she might put it into our private chat room just to give us the opportunity to either address it or so forth. Because as we go on, we believe there will be some questions or some concerns that you will lay. What else? What else? Another thing, just to all of you who are watching us, please don't click on any other link apart from the link that will come from SKTV on here, or Telvina Co, or Seku. Either of us would post a link. Any other link, don't click on it, because if you click on it, somebody will hack your Facebook account or will hack your phone or whatever it is. Again, please don't click on any other link, because people are coming and sending different links and posting different links. Sometimes you might be very curious. You might want to click on it or so forth. Don't do it. Don't do it. That trap, and they'll get to your account and it could hack your account, kick you out of your account, so forth. So please don't click on any other link. We're begging you, don't do that. Don't click on any other link. So we, as we go further we believe that these are some of the important things that you needed to know. So we will move strictly into our conversation. But before we do that, let's do what we said we would have done. A couple of people will be recognized as you write. If you write, we'll recognize you. If you don't write, we don't know you are here, so we wouldn't be able to recognize you. But share the show. We've shared the show to other people as well. Share the show, and let's try to get the information and the education out there really, really quick in this conversation. As many of you might know already, my name is Steve. Steve. Last name is Bolay. I can be reached on Facebook as Moses. You will see my red face on Facebook, in La Brose red face. You see my red face there. You see my picture there. If you do, want to reach out to me, Tel or Seku, any one of us, or SKTV, feel free anytime. Reach out, questions, concern, reach out. Oh, another thing in terms of the disclaimer, just so you know, this is not a counseling session. This is not. This is solely for education, information, and to empower you. Because we, as we always say in Liberia, education and power. They can expose people to power, and that's truth. Once you are informed, you are educated, to some extent, it exposes you to power. Knowledge is very important. Knowledge is power, like we can see. So it's good. This is free of charge. What are some of the concerns or some of the questions that I first thought about in my head that would come up? What are some of the questions that you might ask? Why am I the one doing this? And people want to ask, what are your qualifications and so forth. I will just say something brief about me, not to go into details. Currently, I am a doctoral student at Grand Canyon University, with the hope and prayer that I'll be done very, very soon, either before the summer or right after the summer, studying psychology. So once I graduate, I'll have a doctoral degree in psychology, general psychology. Currently, I'm also a therapist or counselor, however you want to term it. Have a master's in professional counseling and psychology, or however you want to term it. Currently, I'm also an instructor at Grand Canyon University. I teach mental health and wellness courses at the master's level as well. So, been through this cycle, understand this issue, and I don't like to say I'm an expert in it, but I think I am. I don't know. Maybe I am, but as time goes by, we learn from one another. There are a lot of things to learn. Another thing that I want to clear out is, just so you know, there will be no, we're not going to argue about anything. If you believe what you believe, fine. If you're here to learn, then fine too. We are not going to argue. No, we're not going to argue, but we're going to be open-minded. We're not going to argue, but we're going to be open-minded as much as possible. If you disagree with us, you disagree with what we say, that's fine. It's your right. But let's quickly get into we are done with all of the introductions, setting the stage, and so forth. We're done with that part. Let's get into the nitty-gritty here. Let's recognize one or two people. Is that Saleh Afo-Na? I hope I pronounce your name. Saleh. Sorry if I butcher your name. Yomutro. Just give me a second quick here. Sorry there, I was getting a call from one of our members on the team. Yomutro Kwanga, thanks for being here. Saleh, thank you for being here today. Rebecca Hawa Cooper, my sister, thanks for being here. I'm not sure who this Facebook person is. There's no need. Just say Facebook user who says, I'm here, friend. Well, friend, I would like to identify that friend by name, but unfortunately, Anthony, now, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Elizabeth Bawon, welcome. Propo King, welcome. Thanks for being here. And Elizabeth Bawon again. Well, let's move on. Maybe at some point we'll recognize some people, but let's move on to what we are here for today. So the first thing I wanted to bring to our attention is the conversation about mental health and wellness. In general, mental health and wellness, they are both part of your well-being. Let me say it again. They are part of your well-being. One of the things that could happen to you in life that might not happen to you, that should not happen to you, that you don't want, is to lose your mind. I'll say it again. You don't want to lose your mind. God forbid. That's one of the most advantageous things that could happen to any human being. Because when you lose your mind, what happens is other people will make decisions for you. I'll say it again. Other people will make decisions for you. I give you a typical example. Some of us who will work, who have worked, whether it's in nursing homes, whether it's in rehabilitation, whether it's with people with mental problems, one of the common things you find with all of them is they are not able to make decisions. That's why you are hired, to be able to make decisions for them, to help them. Again, let's keep this conversation to mental. I'm not talking about the physical body. I'm not talking about old age. I'm not talking about people who lost control of their body organs, whether it's the bowels, the urine, or so forth. That's not what I'm talking about, the mind. However, that can be connected as well, because if the mind is not aligned, it will be hard for your body to respond. I give you a typical example. Somebody brought it to my attention this morning, and I had to go and look it up and research it as well. Wendy Williams, one of the celebrities, it is reported that because she has a mental problem and she has so much money in the bank, they are thinking about making decisions as to who will be in charge to make decisions of her own money. So that means all the money she has, she cannot have access to it. So you see how your mental state, being stable in your mind, is critically important. It's very important. It's very, very important. And as time goes by, you will see how grief has the possibility or the ability to make you not become mentally stable. So I'll give you an example that maybe you can relate to on this. When you experience death or dying in your family or around you, it affects the way you act. It affects the way you act, the way you react naturally. And we will go into why it does that and how it works and how your brain or your mind works towards that. It's a natural thing. is a natural thing. Even when you try to avoid it, it's a natural thing. Some things are natural. I'll give you an example. It is natural for you to be born man or woman. It is a natural thing. It is. It is a natural thing for you to be born with 5 fingers. It's a natural thing. You don't make that decision. It's a natural thing for you to be born in Liberia. You never made that decision. It's a natural thing for you to be born and say, this is your mother. It is a natural thing. You don't get to make those decisions. It's a natural thing for you to be born and say, that's your father. It's a natural thing. These things, we don't get to choose them. So the same way, it's a natural thing, the way the brain works, the way the mind works, the way our psychic work, the way we think, we process things, the way we work, the way we react also to things, the way we have become as human beings. So that's part of mental health and wellness. You have to be well in your mind to behave well, act well, and act accordingly, especially with your age. So it's a natural thing. But that is aside what we're talking about today. We're talking about death or grief. So let's define this big word, grief. What does it really mean? Or what does it mean? The first thing we have to look at first when you, and I will help you with this. When you look up any word, look it up to find out which part of the speech it is. So let's take, for example, if I say to you here, hunger, don't just define hunger. Look at whether hunger is a noun, a pronoun, a verb, an adjective, or so forth. It's very important for you to know that. Let me say it again. It's very, very important for you to know that. Once you get to know that, then you know why it's that way and why it's applicable that way. So let's see what anger is. Let's see what grief is. So grief is a noun. Now, if grief is a noun, then that means from elementary days, all of us, even if you haven't learned it, then today maybe it'll be something that you learn. It means a noun. Normally when we talk about noun, we talk about people, place, and thing. So you see, so people, place, and thing, putting all together, making this a noun, means that you have some kind of connection to grief. Again, we have to establish these bases. You have some kind of connection to grief. So as long as you're a human being, as long as you live on earth, you're alive, you have a connection to grief because it has to do with person, place, or thing. Remember now, nouns are, person, place, or thing most of the times. So you see the connection there. So that means grief has to do with connection, whether physically, emotionally, psychologically. Think about it that way. It has to do with some kind of connection. But let's move a little further. If grief has to do with some kind of connection, then the question becomes, then what is grief itself? So we went through different definitions. We did a lot of different research to find out what is grief. One of the most important one we find out is, as we're researching, we found out from the Mayo Clinic. We had because it's scientific, we had to do a lot of different research to compare things, not necessarily just from the dictionary or so forth. Mayo Clinic puts it in the simplest form, in one of the best ways that it can be put. So grief is the natural reaction to loss. See it? Remember I was telling you about natural? So grief is a natural reaction, or some people might say respond, but it is a natural reaction or respond to loss. So that means, keep this in context. That means the word loss there, it could be a lot of different things in the word loss. So people lose their marriage, people lose their homes, people lose relationships, but most importantly, people lose family members, loved ones, parents, children, and so forth. So all of that, they put that into one word, they call it grief. So it's a natural connection you have to loss. It's a natural reaction. Please keep this in mind. It is a natural reaction. It's not a Liberia thing. It's not an American thing. It's not an Asian thing. It's not a white people thing. It's not a black people thing. It is a natural reaction. So it applies all over the place naturally. So that means somebody in America can grieve. Somebody in Liberia can grieve. Whether you're poor, whether you're rich, whether you have money, whether you don't have money, whether you look good in the face, whether you don't look good in the face, whether you're tall, whether you're short, whether you're educated, whether you're not educated, grief is applicable to you because it is natural. Remember, we talked about it earlier on. It is natural. So we take our own time to explore this. Grief is natural. It's not something that you can actually avoid. But let's see now. So grief is both a universal and a personal experience also. So because it is natural, it can be universal, it can be personal. But keep this in mind. Individual experiences of grief may vary and are referenced by the nature of the loss. So you see that's important for all of us to know. That's very important for all of us to know. The way somebody will respond to grief might be different. The way somebody will respond to somebody losing their homes or losing a job might be different from how you will respond to it. It doesn't mean it is not a grief that they're experiencing. Let's take, for example, I've had some people from Africa who comes to me and say, "But something wrong with these people on this side." I say, "What do you mean? How can somebody be crying for a dog?" You see that? It is to tell you in Africa, maybe we don't grieve that way for dog. But remember that grief in itself is a noun. So that means it has a connection with person, place, and things. So you have to keep that in mind. So with these three things, you can go out of it when you have to deal with grief. So if somebody chooses to grieve over their dog that maybe they have a connection or a relationship with, it is okay. There is nothing wrong with it. They're not crazy. They're not wrong for doing that. Let's just keep that in mind. They're not wrong for doing that. They're not. If somebody chooses to grieve over the ex-wife, maybe for 20 years ago, and the ex-wife, they just heard that she passed away from COVID, or the ex-husband just passed away from COVID 20 years ago. They're not wrong for doing that. They're not wrong for doing that. And it's important for us to understand this. Some of us who are Christian-oriented, who have Christian backgrounds, who are religious people, you might say, well, maybe, well, in our culture or in our church or in our religion, grief business. But then let's come to the religious aspect of it, because I want to lay the basis and a balance before we get into a little deep side of this conversation, because it will get a little tricky and deeper here. So let me say this to all of us who are religious people, who have some kind of religious outbreak or background. Yes, grief is acceptable in the church. Grief is recognized in the church. Remember, it is a natural thing. And that's something that somebody come and made and imposed on you. It is a natural thing. Grief is acceptable in the church. One of the stories that talks about grief, that outlay grief down the line. And let me say this to we who are Christians. You don't have to do anything to God for bad thing to happen to you, for grief to happen. Let me say again, you don't have to wrong God. You don't have to be a sinner. You don't have to, no. So let's get that clear. We have to establish that. The story of Job. Job was a good man, like the Bible says. He was a very good guy. Didn't do anything wrong. But things happened to Job that led to his grief. Things happened to Job that led to his grief. When you read Job chapter 1, Job chapter 2, you will see that a lot of different things happened to Job in his life. A lot of different things happened to Job. So you see the grief process. You see the grief process. Even in the Bible, people mourn. Yes, like one of our viewers just stated here. Yes, even in the Bible, it talks about it. You will mourn. People will mourn. Mourning is part of grief. Mourning is part of grief. People cry. So Job himself grieved. Now, for we push it to the extent. We push it to the extent because on this platform and in Liberia, we have two major religions, Christian and Muslim. Let's see what the Quran say, or what our Muslim brothers and sisters say about what does the Quran say, or what does it say? In the Quran, it talks about grief as well. Grief, you cannot avoid it. So there's an article published, and listen to this. Grief is inevitable fact of life. one that a person must unfortunately go through. That's what God says. It says here, Allah says, if you read a Surah verses 155, it talks about grief. Listen to what it says. Quote, in Surah verses 155, this is what it says. And we will surely test you with something of fear and of hunger and a loss of wealth and the lives and fruits as long as you are on earth. So that means as long as you live on earth, yes, there will be grief. People will experience grief. So grief is not new to mankind, to human being. You are not the first person that will experience it. And all of us watching today, listening today, have experienced grief sometimes in our life, one way or the other. And some of us are still going, over the grief. We're still grieving for people that we love. It doesn't necessarily mean that will go away. You cannot go take a tablet to make it go away. You can't go to the hospital for them to prescribe something to make it go away. No. The same thing with things like trauma. There is no cure for it. You can't say, oh, I'm cured from grief. I'm cured from this grief. No. You can develop, you can learn coping mechanisms, you can learn strategies, you can learn ways to help you cope with your grief and to adjust with life. But it doesn't mean that something will ever go away. So that means even when you walk in the house and you see that person's picture in your house, it will bring back those memories. It's possible. It is possible. So then now that we know what grief is, we got to know how it works. So just knowing about something is one thing, but you have to know how it works. So let's say, for example, the thing we have when you hear about iPhone Pro 11, you heard that name, iPhone Pro 11, and you can see the iPhone Pro 11. You can see it. You see it. But it's as useless as you not knowing how it works, because if someone was to give you an iPhone Pro 13 or 11, Mac 13, whatever it is, I'm not a fan of iPhone, just so you know, sorry. But I'm a big fan of Samsung and so forth. But that's aside the point. What I'm trying to say to you is, it's important to understand how it works, the operations of it, the details of it, how it works will make it better for you. It will help you navigate through. So if you know how iPhone works, it makes it easier for you to use it. So it makes it easier for you to use it and just have. So if you know how grief works, then it helps you navigate through it, the process. But you will have to go through the process. So based on our research, we discovered that grief operates in 5 different ways. And there's a reason for it. And the 5 different ways, we name them. The first step is denial. I know you've seen people who can't believe that a person died, in shock. The second step is anger. It's a natural thing. Respond to it. The same way had denial. The third thing is bargaining. Bargaining means, some people yell, oh, I wish I was the one who was dead and not that person. The other stage is depression, the 4th stage. And then the 5th stage is acceptance. Please keep this in mind. Acceptance does not mean that you move on. It doesn't mean that you forgot about the dead or you forgot about your loss. That's not what it means. That's not what it means. So let's try to run through these different stages quick. Let's try to run through them, how they work and why they work the way they work. Because it's important, again, it's important for you to understand how they work, the way they work. So how in normal times, the way depression works, it can print a picture. The way grief works can also print a picture. So when you understand those pictures, when you see people going through those processes of grief or those stages, then you can recognize and know that this person is grieving. Let me say it again. You can recognize it and say this person is grieving. So what kind of picture does denial print? First of all, denial can look like people avoiding it. They don't want to talk about it. And yes, I've experienced it. I've experienced it from the first hand. Many of you have experienced it because sometimes you don't want to believe that this has happened, but it is reality. In denial, you can also feel shocked. You can be confused. Sometimes you feel shut down. You feel shut down. Also, denial can look like, you know, you get easily distracted. You want to forget about it. You want that time or that day to be over with. You just cannot believe it. So these are some of the pictures that denial can print. Let's move on to anger. Let's move on to anger. You know, anger in itself can be a little hard to explain because some of us are so used to people being angry and either showing it by physically fighting or so forth. But being aggressive is part of it. Also, anger in this context can also be put as people being passive. People being passive. Anger can also look like people using sarcasm. You know, you're making jokes of it. You are angry about it, but you're making joke of it. But anger can also look like frustration. You can be impatient. You feel embarrassed. You feel like you're out of control. But another part of anger also that we haven't touched about, anger can also, in this place, make you want to forget about the situation so much that you just want to drink, just get drunk, or just be getting drunk because you can't handle what's going on. You are angry about the fact there is not much you can do about it. And you start to ask yourself lots of questions. Why? What did this person do? What did we do? What did my family do? Why this time? How? But I thought we were good Christian. God, why did you do this? Or why did you allow this to happen? You know? So you start to ask all these different questions in your stage of anger. And you move to the next stage, to bargaining stage, where you are bargaining. That means bargaining more like you are begging or you want to exchange, so forth. You know, you start to overthink it. What if this were me? What did I do wrong? Or what did this person do wrong? What really happened? Where did we go wrong? In bargaining, you start to look into the future and assume the worst. Does it mean that this thing is a family thing is going to happen to this person next? You know, you start to look into things too much. But also you try to feel guilty. You try to blame yourself. The level of insecurity becomes worse. You start having fear and anxiety. In America, you know, depending on what happened, you know, you start to feel frustrated. You get very, very frustrated in this process. You get very, 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 very frustrated in this process. So let's move on to the next part, which is one of the big parts. Depression. You get depressed. You can't sleep. You can't eat. No energy. You don't want to, act with nobody. Some people don't take showers. You feel less motivated to do anything. You can't even take care of the children anymore in that time. You feel helpless, hopeless, disappointed, overwhelmed. The level of sadness is so big over you. You are so worried about what the next step that you take. What are you going to do, especially if this is the person that you are relying on? If this was a key component of your life. Yeah, somebody say you isolate truth. You isolate, you want to stay by yourself. You don't answer your phone. People come to the house. You don't want to open the door. You don't want to talk to nobody. You don't want to watch TV. You turn off all the TV. You're just in the house. You don't want to do nothing. You don't want to do nothing. You lock yourself up in the room. You cry all day. You don't drink, you don't eat, you don't do anything. You don't want to do anything. It gets serious to the point that some people go days. They don't want to take shower. They don't want to come outside in the public. They can't even care for themselves. So yes, these things are realistic. You're overthinking, your mind is running. You can't sleep. You can't sleep. You cannot function normally. It's not just possible. But let's move to the last part. Let's move to the last part of it. After the depressive stage, then you get into the stage wherein you accept it. Again, please remember, accepting a loss in grief does not mean that you've overcome it. So in that, how does it look? It looks like you're mindful. You start having mindful behavior. You're good enough. You gain some courage. You gain validation. You start to come up. You start to have some compassion about yourself. You are able now to maybe interact with people. You can answer your phone. You can talk to people on the phone. You start taking words of encouragement. You start taking words of, sympathy. You log back maybe on your Facebook and you post a pertinent picture. You respond to people. You interact with them. You start returning calls and so forth. Just the sense of, wanting to get back to normality. You want to get back to your normal life. You want to get back to your normal life. You definitely want to do some things. You definitely want to get involved. Whether it's you and the girls used to go hang out before, you want to go hang out again. You start coming in small. It takes time. It takes time. It really, 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 really takes time. It's not something that you just rush into. It takes time. It really, really does take time. So now the question becomes, after all of this that you have experienced, this huge wave of grief, when you have experienced a huge wave of grief, the question is, one of the biggest questions that is always asked is, but then all of this thing that you just said, how do I go through it? How do I navigate through it? What do I do to go through this process? How can I go through this? Because sometimes it's so overburdened. It's so elaborate. Let me use our elaborate terms. It's so sorrowful, it's so unfortunate. You don't know what to do. You just don't know what to do. And so you are there, you are stuck, you are confused. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to go about this. So let's go through some of the things that, really quick, that is expected that to be able to navigate through it. In your denial stage, one of the things that is important for us to recognize in this stage is you have to understand and know that it is okay for you to now want to believe what's happening to you. It's okay because you didn't plan it, you didn't expect it. This was never thought about. Somebody just decided and say, oh, I'm going to the store to get something. They get in the car and go for somebody come and hit them and they died. That was never planned. A few minutes ago, this person was just talking. Somebody go in the room and say, go take a nap. They can't wake up. This person was just hanging out with y'all. Or somebody was not too well, you took them to the hospital, or just something little that, thought is manageable, it could help. The hospital will take care of it. And boom, it leads to this person's death. You don't know how to handle it. It's okay. That's the first thing you must understand to navigate through these stages. You must understand that it's okay for you to be in shock. It's a natural, normal reaction. There is nothing wrong with it. You are not crazy when you do that. You are not extraordinary to say, oh, why is she making drama of this? Why is she acting like this? No, it is okay. It is acceptable. It is okay for you to be in shock. When we move to the anger stage, for you to navigate through this, it's also okay for you to let it out in a healthy way. Even when you're angry, I'm not saying if you're angry, go around and start punching people or start making plow with everybody in the house. Start fighting or cursing everybody. Those are not healthy ways. Sometimes even the people who's supposed to be your support system, you drive them away because you're angry. You push them away. It's okay for you to pick healthy ways, such as you can exercise. It's okay for you to go exercise. It's okay for you to, maybe you say you've never been to the gym before, for you to go and register and go to the gym. It's okay. It's okay for you to wake up early in the morning and say you want to go take a walk. Nothing wrong with that. It is okay, as long as you'll be safe. Or maybe you can invite someone to take a walk with you. It's okay for you to tell someone, I don't want too much noise. I don't want too much talking. It's okay. It's okay for you to play your religious music, for you to play any kind of music to entertain us. It's okay. It is healthy. It's okay for you to say, I want you to cook my favorite food. Nothing wrong with that. It's okay for you to also write things down. Yes, nothing wrong with it. You can journal it. You can write it down. You can draw. You can do other things. Draw how you feel. It's okay. So sometimes in therapy, we tell people they don't want to talk. So we hand them clipboards, we hand them papers, markers, and other things like that, especially children at a very young age. We ask them to write down or draw how they feel because of how they express their emotion. It's okay. People are different. Yeah, it's okay too for you to talk about it. It's okay for you to talk about how you feel, your memories of that person. It's okay for you to get it out. So we move to the next stage of bargaining. In bargaining, it's okay for you to use positive words. It's very okay for you to look for positive words to use, to think in a positive way. In a positive way, I mean, and to also remind yourself that if your loved one was sick and they were in so much pain, that person is in a better place. It's okay to remind yourself that. It's okay for you to not blame yourself. Maybe there is nothing you could have done to help them at that point. Maybe they reached the end of their life. It's okay for you to go back and look at the good things that they did, how they contributed to your life. Where can you pick up from where they left you? What can you do? How did they contribute? How did they help? It's okay. It's okay for you to have a good sense of the memory of all the positive things that you've done or that both of you did together. It's okay for you to go back and look into some of the plans that they wanted to achieve. How can you help? How can you contribute? Then sitting there and saying, I wish it was me. Can I live without a person? And knowing that maybe you have children, you have other people, other family members and loved ones that either look up to you. They're dependent on you. So then if you decide to hurt yourself or do something to yourself, then the question becomes, what become of them? What become of them? So it is okay for you to think positively, especially for people who have children. You have a reason to still be alive. You have a reason to still push on. Not that you are ignoring that person. What is the best thing you can do to keep that person memory living on, to live on? I mean, what can you do? How can you ensure that the vision, their goal, what they wanted to do, what they love, how can you ensure that? So it's okay in that bargaining stage for you to think positively. For the depression, we normally encourage people to not keep themselves in a bubble or in a bottle. Don't keep yourself in a bottle. Don't keep yourself in a bottle. And let me say this, in as much that we will not judge anyone, but it is not safe to be drinking or using drugs. Let me say it again. Find healthy ways to cope. Find healthy things to do. There are some things that can be done that are very healthy. It is not a time to be getting overly drunk or be drinking and maybe people finding you in the guato or you getting tickets here. Just think about it. And there, you get into fights, you drink, wherein maybe sometimes you disgrace yourself, you take off your clothes in public. you misbehave in public. Those are very, very bad way of, they're not good. It's like you're adding on to your problem. You're adding on to your own problem because let's be honest, when you've done all of that, the grieving process is still going to be sitting there waiting for you. It's not going away. Your drinking will not take it away. Cussing everybody around you will not take it away. Fighting everybody around you will not take it away. These are just facts. These are facts that we live with every day. Every day. And yes, it's okay to seek help. Go to counseling. I know many of us don't like to seek help. I'm not saying go to maybe your best friend or your other friend who lost family members and just ask them, oh, what did you do to cope? Maybe they're coping, what they did is not applicable to you. Not that you can do that if you choose to, but go seek professional help. Right. Try to honor yourself and love yourself. Take care of yourself. Get involved with healthy activities. If it causes you to go back to work, you want to go back to work, go back to work. That will get you involved and engaged. Yes, because those things will fall in place over time. If you have to take a trip to say, maybe I don't want to be to the house here for maybe 2-3 weeks, I want to take off and go to another state to family members, loved ones, and friends just to get away, do it. Nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with us doing that. There is nothing wrong with it. So then the last part of this also is the accepting part. Accept that you have been resilient. Is it time maybe to reward yourself? Yes. It's okay. It's okay for you to come back when you come back from all of those. It's okay for you to go to your favorite restaurant. There's nothing wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with it. It's okay for you to buy something for yourself after you've been through that process, because sometimes it can be a long process. But here is something that we might not have really touched on in this process. In this process, one of the major things that you will have is you will need a support system. Let me say it again. You will need a support system. You will need human being. Let me put it that way. You will need people. You will need a support system. Very big. Very, very big and very important. You will need a support system. You will. And hopefully, you will be able to keep your support system in this process. You will need a support system. You will. Because the reality of it is, when everybody come and cry and they leave, it will just be your one. But you will still need people that you can talk to on the phone. You will still need people that will check up on you. So burning bridges with your support system, fighting with your support system in this time, it's not a healthy thing to do. It's not a healthy thing to do. Don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. Some support systems might let you down. Yes, they might not be involved as you expect them. Either maybe because they're going through their own things. They're not able to handle this. But you will need a support system. You will. You will. And you have to give yourself time. This is not a competition. If somebody had a family member or loved one that passed away from them a few weeks ago and they're all up back on Facebook and bouncing and chilling and traveling and doing all kind of things, that's okay. Maybe that's the recovery process is faster. Maybe they chose to handle it that way. Would I say it's healthy? If it's working for them, good. If it's not, then they need to look into another way. But you can't compare you with that person and say, oh, it only took that person 3 weeks to grieve. So I think my own Bible just tell me the same 3 weeks or whatever. No, we're individually different. Give yourself time. If you need time, give yourself time. Be very patient with yourself. Be very, very patient with yourself. And remember this, that it is natural. Your reactions are natural. Just don't try to push them or overdo them. These are natural reactions we have. And there will be natural reactions we will have as long as you live as a human being. Now, it's important, again, I'll say this to you, it's important to have a support system. It's important in this process to think about your future. What is at hand? What can you do? What are some of your responsibilities? What things you need to ship and turn around? Because that person is no longer going to be around anymore to fill in that gap. How do you manage to fill in that gap? What do you do? What do you rely on? How do you change the course of time? How do you adapt? How do you adjust? Even thinking about how to communicate this conversation, how to have this conversation with your children is important. Whether in a divorce, in a relationship, whether in losing of your home, a job, or so forth, it's important for you to think about how you have this conversation. And when are you going to sit and tell your children, grandma is no longer going to be around, grandma will not be with us, grandma passed away, grandpa passed away, daddy passed away, mommy passed away, or me and mommy are no longer together, we got a divorce. Me and daddy are no longer together, we got a divorce. So daddy will not be living with us in the house here. Y'all will be with mommy or y'all will be with daddy. And daddy will be coming to see you, or you'll be going to daddy's new place to have to spend some time. It's important to prepare the children in that context. It's very, very important. It's important to set aside time to have these conversations. Very important. It's important to tell the children the job that I used to make $5 on, I used to make me to take you every evening to McDonald's. I'm not making that $5 anymore. I don't have that job. So I will not be able to go to McDonald's with you guys every weekend because I don't have the job and I don't have the money. However, I'm looking for a different job. It's okay to have that conversation. It's not okay to get mad and tell the children, oh, you're sure that McDonald's been every day. You're not going to say I lose my job. You're not going to say I get a job. No. It's okay to have a conversation with your children. It's very okay. And I like for you to keep this as we wind down here today. I like for you to keep this part in your mind about communicating with your children, communicating with other people. If it's even okay when you meet someone new or when you're involved with someone, it's okay for you to tell them at this time of the month, at this time of the year, I will react this way, I will act this way. Communicate that because of this, because of that. There is nothing wrong with that. And it's also okay for that person to ask you how best they can support you in that time. It's okay. Again, it's not a Liberia thing versus America thing. No. It's a natural thing where we can support one another. It's a natural thing. It's okay for you to tell that person, during this time, I really don't want to be bothered, or I don't want this kind of interaction because I'm probably grieving or I'm just trying to spend this time. It's okay to communicate ahead of time. And when that person forget, now bear in mind, that person could forget, whether deliberately or not. But when that person forget, because it concerns you, it's okay to remind that person. It's okay. Say, remember what I told you about this time of the year or this time of the month? Remember what I told you? Remember what I told you? It's okay to remind the person and don't take it personal and don't get mad. So we are here at 1 hour. I will type in a number here. We'll take the next maybe 10, 15 minutes to take one or two calls, whether that input or so forth. And I will definitely give you, I'll put the number up here. I'll definitely give you what we'll talk about next week. What we'll talk about next week. I'm typing the number here for you to call. I'm typing the number here. Hopefully, hold on. Let me make sure the right number. Okay, 401 2081. Okay, so I'm going to pin the number, and this will give you the opportunity to call in. Now, here is something I wanted to bring out. I want to bring out why we're winning your call. Why we're winning your calls. Most recently, we have a death in our community, and I'm hoping and praying to be there next week after next, or so forth, because he's a brother and a friend. My brother and my friend Christmas. I'll be there in Philadelphia for the memorial service or whatever it is that they're having. But here is something that's interesting. When people die, when people pass on, it's okay for them to be respected. You know, sometimes when I scroll on Facebook and I see people, instead of commemorating, being in solidarity, showing support, people are using it on, oh, Chris Moore had a baby man yet. Chris Moore had a child here. Oh, the man hasn't even been buried. Oh, and Chris Moore was like this, and his wife is like this. And we need to be supportive in this time. When people die, they're gone. It doesn't matter what they did here when they were alive. When they're alive, if you confront them, that's fine. They must be showing respect and dignity, especially where people are grieving. A lot of different things that people are talking about. Just talking, all kind of funny things. So yes, that's the number. Feel free to call. Feel free to call on. That is the number. While we're waiting, the number is out there. Once you call, you get me here. I try to shy away from the talking business or the calling business, but we have to put it in there. We got a few more minutes, and some of you have made some very good comments here, contributing to the conversation. That is the number. I'm going to make sure I pinpoint some of the conversation. Yes, P. Edward says grieving is personal. There is no time frame or consistent progression through the stages. I agree, most definitely. Let's go up here. There are a lot of actions that went on during the conversation that we're going to start to go through. Yes, there are 5 stages of grief. Thank you so much for that. You're 100% right. There are 5 stages. Let's move on to other conversations here. I'm just scrolling through the conversation here. The thing. Yes, somebody said during this process, some people might. Deconti said during this process, some people might contemplate on harm during a depressive state. Yes, people might want to harm themselves. Yes, this is a good question from Beatrice Kanga Gray. She asked, can a deep grief cause illness? Yes, grieving can lead to illness. It could be a precipitating factor. It can also lead to trauma as well. So yes, grieving is not just about the crying or so forth. It can be related. It can lead to it. Yes, it can have serious medical condition. As Deconti said here, if not, a medical condition, if left untreated. That's truth. That's true. Some of these things we don't overlook it. We shouldn't overlook them. Somebody made a comment here. I think that's very interesting. Let's look at that comment. Suicidal, and the person said Liberian. Suicidal Liberian address grief and urge to withhold emotions and present to be over it after a period of time. Yes, most of our Liberians, we keep that grief in us. Over time, we think we're over it. No, we're not over it. And let me say this, it's not healthy. It's not healthy from a psychological standpoint. It's not healthy. It is not healthy. You keep so much in that you can't talk about how you feel. It's okay to go through the process. It is okay. There is nothing wrong with that. Yes, somebody say everyone grieves differently. I 100% agree that everyone grieves differently. You definitely need to seek help. I like this one. It is also okay to ask others for what you need. Don't assume that everybody knows what you need. That's truth. In this process, you cannot assume. Um, yes, yes. Telvi just told me that she can come on to ask a question. Yes, Telvi, if you're ready, Telvi, just let me know. I'll signal me in the chat room. And I'll bring you on really quick so you can ask your question. Once you're ready, or you know what, I'll just bring you on really quick. Tell hello. You're muted. Hello.
I'm ready.
Yes, you're ready. Okay, let's have your question.
I am.
Yeah. Oh,
Hello.
I'm seeing your house. I like the mirror. That's nice.
Am I on mute?
No, you're not on mute. Everybody's seeing you. Everybody's seeing the mirror in the back there.
Oh, this was so informative. I'll take you some notes. Hang on. You see my bedroom, which is not a good thing.
Well,
I
you
work
sure
from my room today. Hang on.
I'm seeing the mirror.
Yeah, you see my dresser.
Okay, cool.
I was too lazy to go out, but a couple of questions here until we can get some calls. I wasn't trying to come up. So for some people, I mean, Valentine's next week. And so obviously for some people, it may be a difficult time for them. You know, they lost the loved one due to COVID or some separation or whatever it is, a loss. So what are some ways you think you can just recommend that they can cope with? Or, I mean, good coping mechanism.
Well, I think there is not a general answer. It has to be on a case by case basis. Let's be honest, because different reasons, different factors. Let me click on the number here. While we're answering this question, this is the number to calling on if you have a question or concern. But different reasons, different factors could lead to that, and different steps that it could take. So let's take, for example, if that person had a bad breakup during Valentine, that's not time they want to really be thinking about that person. However, if that person lost maybe the loved one around this time last year, and so forth, whether due to COVID or other issues, one of the things that they can do, one of the things that person could do is find a way to either commemorate, fill up on your love, or things that you used to do together. Let's take, for example, maybe it is the time to go and visit that person's grave. You don't have to wait for Memorial Day. You can go there, take roses and flowers. That's acceptable. That's okay. If you're used to go to a restaurant and you want to go there, you are okay enough, you feel comfortable enough, that will help commemorate that memory, thought and feeling that you guys have, keep it together. That's okay too. You can go to that restaurant. If it's time for you to say, what happened? I just want to spend this time with family. It's okay. Just try not to be isolated. Don't get in a depressive mood. If you want to use that time to go out and shopping for yourself and maybe buy your favorite fragrance or perfume or something that person used to buy for you around that time of the year, it's okay to do it too. Do something that will be healthy, exciting, that will bring life, that will bring joy, that will bring excitement and hope than depression.
Awesome. Stay talking about coping. Some people, no matter how long their loved one has been gone, just when they smell a certain perfume or maybe pass on a specific road or whatever it is, it reminds them of that relative or a certain day, or holiday, like we're saying. I guess it kind of tied to even the first one, Valentine, but how can they, even though there's no, everybody grieves differently, but I'm still, again, looking at that healthy way of how they can handle that to kind of move past it. Sometimes it's been 30 years later, but it's still there.
So one of the things that can be done, is that person has to come to terms with reality, and that's in the acceptance stage now. That yes, my husband or my significant other used to use this perfume or whatever it is, but there are other people that are still using it. It's okay also to stop by that person and say, "Can I have a word with you?" If you have come to that stage and say, "My husband used to use this spray, my wife used to use this spray, my significant other used to use this spray. It reminds me of them. Thank you for bringing that memory." You see, what you are doing in that context, you are confronting not only your fears, but also you are adapting and adjusting that. hey, this is a new norm, this is a new reality. There are other people that are wearing this spray, this cologne, this perfume, or there are other people that are wearing the same shirt, and it will keep on. But that person must have brought some kind of memory to you, but you cannot use it in a negative context at this point. So yes, so it's acceptable. I have a caller here.
We have a call, right?
Yeah, do you mind if I take this call?
Sure, it's all about now. We're just passing time.
Thank you so much. Caller, what's your name? Are you calling from, please?
Talking to me now?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
Okay, hi, this is Desmond calling from Minnesota.
Yep.
I'm gonna step out because my children are
Yep. You're sorry. I didn't want the children to give her a hard time. So they're doing exactly what I recommended. So that's good.
You're living up to their word.
Yes.
But yes, what you're doing is much needed. You already know if you need a backup partner, let me know.
Most definitely.
I will come on and you know bring my expertise. But what I wanted to say as far as what you just to add on to what you talked about with grief, right? When I do grief work with clients that come to see me, I literally teach them that you came to process. So usually when they come to process, then they give me that look at the end of now what?
Right.
And then I teach them now, you proceed. You have processed what kept you stagnated. Now you must proceed. And I like what you said about it doesn't mean that you just get rid of this loss, or it doesn't mean that you accept it, but it means that you're now going to be more mindful of how you proceed with this space now.
Right.
This new form of acceptance of what the relationship looks like. Yeah, so I teach people that, you're not doing it when it's a thing. You say, well, I feel crying now. I make my peace. What am I just supposed to do now? Just, I feel you did your work. Time to move.
Right.
So, thank you very much. This was important. A lot of us have so much grief work to do. The other thing that you probably said that I missed was, in looking for a provider or someone to work with, make sure that person understands your worldview. And when I say worldview,
hold on.
Make sure that person know your culture.
Oh, the call drop.
Yeah, but you can reach out. Okay, maybe they'll call.
Yeah,
back.
caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Another caller will come in the call drop.
My name is Edward P.
Hey, Edward, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, Edward, just give me a second, Edward.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah.
You keep hanging on to people.
Yes, I don't know if you're hanging out. Yes, definitely go ahead, please.
You hung up on me, or?
I'm very sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to put that person on hold. I'm very sorry. I'll have to call him back. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, what I was adding is make sure that person, the clinician you choose to work with, make sure they know your culture. Make sure that's something that is important when you bring to grief work, because our cultural background defines what grief looks like and how we process grief. Now, if you meet a really good clinician who don't know the culture, it is now your place to teach them as your work.
Right.
So don't totally dispel that, oh no, you're not from my culture, I can work with you. No. Trust that the expert is the expert and you can teach them how to work with your culture.
Thank you so much, Edward.
Overall, good stuff, man. Thank you. I'll keep listening.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
I will get back to Edward. Yeah, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
Good evening. This is Beatrice Kanga-Gray. I'm calling from Pennsylvania. I just wanted to say thank you so much for what you've decided to do. I think it's well needed and it's very crucial. And I think you're going to make a lot of impact in many, many lives. And I just pray that it continue and you get all the support you need, because you are going to be helping a lot of people. I went to the doctor a few weeks back, and the doctor was telling me that they have a backlog of young people with mental illnesses, and they're turning to narcotics and all kinds of stuff, and they need counseling, and counselors are booked. But these kind of conversations, I think that's what we need in our society and communities, So I just want to applaud what you're doing, and I want to thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you to my
Thank
chair,
you.
Lily, and my the person who can take care of me on our side of the East Coast. Thank you so much.
Sure, sure.
All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Sorry, I had to call somebody back. I'm very sorry. I had to call this
Did
person.
you get paid? What's his name?
Yes,
Paid
I'm
man?
calling. I'm calling Mr. Payback. Mr. Pay?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hey.
I'm very sorry that we keep disconnecting or hanging up on you here. Sorry, this new technology and not easy.
It's okay. I know you are still learning.
Yes, sir.
I'm here.
Yes, your contribution.
I know. I saw you hanging on me coming back, but I just want to applaud. I just want to say thank you. This is a very important topic. Some of these things, you're better off when you understand them,
right,
than when you don't understand them. Our society has a tendency of, encouraging the strong face, wherein they expect that within a certain period of time, you're supposed to be over it. And when people go beyond that point of grieving their loved ones, people wonder, but the man died, says 90 what the person is still talking about. We need to, and some of these teachings are very important because they reinforces that certain things are normal. Grieving is personalized. You can't tell somebody how to grieve. And in as much as we have the stages of grieving, they don't even come in a straight line.
Right.
Some people go through different stages in different ways. And the time frame involved, some people, they go from the start of the grieving stages to the end of the grieving stage within a set period of time. But some people do it over 10, 15, 20 years,
Right.
But our role as family, friends, and loved ones is to provide support, is to help people as they go through these processes, is to, encourage them and help them to not cope negatively and find positive means of coping. Grieving can lead to depression.
Yes.
Depression can lead to use of other things, negative coping. We're talking about drugs, we're talking about alcohol, we're talking about other things. Because people are of the mindset during this period that, if I use this, I will forget about it. My perception of grieving and some of these things is there are things we can change and there are things we can't change.
Right.
I look at it as your little backpack you got on your back in life. How are you going to continue life with that backpack? Because you're not going to change that the person died. You need to put that backpack on your back and keep moving. How do you cope and continue life with accepting the fact that this person is no more? So our role as people who are around those people who are grieving, I haven't experienced grief, like the grieving process personally, but I think, the role of family, friends, loved ones is to just support people who are going through that process and not be, quick to judgment or quick to be negative or say, like you said about Christmas, our role right now is to support his wife, his kids, as they go through these progressions and these realities, because their reality is coming to terms with the fact that this person is no more.
Right.
And in our local adage, they say, grieving is your death is like a rain. It falls on everybody's door. Some people behave like it will never fall on their door or on their doorstep. This is very educative. This is it's something we need to. This is healthy communication. This is healthy conversation instead of the other conversation. I don't even want to give it credit. The other conversation we be having on social media. I don't usually call, but I just want to say thank you. Let us learn to support, because we will need that support sometime in the future. So helping people to cope positively, helping people to navigate these rough roads during grief is very important. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. P. Appreciate your contribution.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. For those of you who will still like to call, we got about five more minutes or so, and we will be closing this up for the day. Well, let's tell, unless you have one or two questions, so I can make one or two announcements for next Friday. Very interesting, and where we start and how we go about, especially on the very first day of launching here. Go ahead. Tell you have any questions?
I feel you already started. It was more than a teaser, but two questions here though, and then that's all for my end.
Yes.
Men and grieving, and it doesn't matter the culture. Even brown, white, whatever it is. Most times men feel that, or they're not supposed to be expressive in their grieving because it's a sign of weakness, or it shows that they're lesser than a strong man. What would you say about that, and how can you speak to people like that who feel that way and feel that they need to express their grief different way? I don't need to cry. Men can't cry. If you cry, then you're a woman, you're a chick, you are whatever, you're a child. How do you handle that? Can you speak to that?
Well, let me get something quick. Let me get something quick to all of us. The issue of gender and grieving comes with different chemistries in our body and in how we are made. So let's take, for example, and this is not applicable to all men. Some men grieve differently too as well.
Right.
It all comes to our biological made-ups. So men, we have that macho ego. That's why we grow beards. We have facial hair. Most women don't. It's because of the different, again, chemicals, the way we're made, the chemical balances. So due to the ego and so forth, and sometimes the way in which we carry ourselves, whether from a societal standpoint, whether from a just the way we grew up and the culture we find ourselves in, or sometimes the connection to that person, some men will grieve a certain way, but it all boils down to the chemical, the way we are made as men, with the that level of hypeness in us, that level of ego as well, as compared to women. When it comes to emotions, women tend to most of the time express emotions a lot. Men, we don't. So sometimes we don't. So we take that into how we act through all our lives as men. So even when it's something where we're supposed to express emotion, some men, we don't. Some men will though.
Some will.
So there are different factors to it. There is not a one set answer to that question. I think I'm getting a call here from, I'm not sure, Canada. I think at Canada here. Call, what's your name? We're calling from, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lawrence. I'm calling from Canada.
Hey, Lawrence.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick contribution.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
You guys, so to grieving. And one thing I noticed, especially in our Liberian context, people like to assume that they share the same belief systems, with the grieving individuals or families, and that can be a problem. So even as Liberians, we might have a culture, but then maybe individuals they deviate from what we normally practice. If, for example, there could be somebody who doesn't believe in God, for example. There could be an individual who has a different kind of concept of what God is and these things. So it's important for you to get to know the part that you're giving support to, because as a society And as relatives and friends, our role is to support their family. So, for example, if my mother passed away and you're grieving with me, for example, and you made a statement like, it's God's will that she died, somebody like me would be very offensive because I don't share that kind of belief that God has decided that my mother died. So it becomes offensive, right? So we may have good intentions in terms of how we kind of console the grieving party, but it's important that you get to know the individual, ask questions, or be a little bit neutral in your support. Don't assume anything because it could be more offensive for the individual.
I agree.
So I just want to make that point. And because normally just assume that everybody's the same and we believe in the same system, so and then we get project our belief on. So it's just very important that we take these things into consideration when we get providing support, to the families or individuals who are grieving. Not necessarily death alone, but any situation for that matter. We gotta be a little bit careful.
Thank you so much. I agree, and I share similar view. Thank you so much. And the caller made an excellent point. Tell, I think we draw down a curtain.
That's it.
You had another question. Let's answer the last question for the day. I think
somehow maybe one of the caller kind of spoke to it, but you emphasize it more and more about the support group. But I think what I wanted you to speak to was, what are good people? What are good examples of people you can include in your support group, and what are bad examples of people you don't want to include in your support group?
Well, at this point in the grieving process, to be very honest with you, you need as much support as you can get. However, you would have to make that decision in that call. You wouldn't want to include people that would create drama for your stress.
Yeah, but the point there, some people would say, "Oh, what's saying you? Let's go to the bar and go get drunk." I'm talking about bad coping.
Right. So, and part of the examples would be you wouldn't want to include people that will lead you down a negative path or so forth. But again, you want as much support as you can get. Number two, you wouldn't want people that will get you more stressed, more worried. Is it the best time? Most recently, I was speaking to someone on the phone and the lady told me that, she went to someone that they had misunderstanding. The person's family died and she went to speak to them and the person was crying. As soon as they saw them walking, the person said, no, she's not allowed to come in here. Yes, it's okay for the person to refuse for you to go there. It's okay. It's not strategic or it's not the right time to want to make amends. Some people might not want it at that time.
Exactly.
And if the person says you should leave, don't take it personal. As part of your support for them, it's okay to support them from a distance. You can contribute to the process. You can also, but yes, building support system will help. And encouraging a support system makes a huge, huge difference. It will make a huge difference. Again, not only just building it, not only just developing a support system, but you have a responsibility to maintain that support system. You can't curse everybody in your support system. You can't fight with everybody in your support system. You can't make plow with everybody in your support system. You can't do that, So there has to be a balance here to help. So yes, thank you so much. Let's run over what is for tomorrow. Tomorrow will be on, as always, SKTV. Will be on tomorrow. The same time, will be on 11 a.m. Arizona time, and we'll be on 1 p.m. the East Coast time, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 6 p.m. Liberia's time, which is GMT. What's next for next Friday for mental health and wellness? For the next 8 Fridays, which is going to be 2 months, we will be discussing something very important, the genesis of almost all of our problems. We'll be going to the bottom of it. We'll start off with the 8 stages of growth and development. We'll talk about each of them every Friday. We'll spend time on going into them. And if the need be, we might roll it up to, so at least 8 to 10 Fridays, which is 2 months, before we move into another segment, because we don't want to jump into something else. We don't want to jump into drug and addiction and why people use drug. We want to go to the genesis of everything, how it starts. And one of the places it starts, it will surprise you and shock you, is the family. So tomorrow, next Friday, we'll be on here at the same time, the same place. And we will be talking about the very first stage of growth and development. We'll be talking about the very first stage of growth and development. And I just want to give you a sneak peek into next week. It's called Trust versus Mistrust. We'll talk about how the trauma that mother experienced, the child can experience it. When we see so many young girls and the young guys passing around and getting drunk, especially the women, you're pregnant and you're drinking, the impact on that child. We'll also talk about how when a woman is pregnant and when you, the man, decide to inflict violence on that woman to cause her to be in sorrow and in pain, how it has an impact on the child. We'll talk about how when you touch a child at a certain age, you've created trauma for that child for the rest of their life. We'll talk about it. We'll also dive into the importance of who you leave your children with, who raised your children or your child, and we'll talk about how children respond to different things at a different age, especially from a very young age, how the child's life can be impacted. We'll talk about it, and we'll talk a lot more about some of these things so that people can go back into their lives and find out what are some of the struggles that they're going through, why they're going through it, so that we don't be blaming all the witchcraft in our village, all the women in our town. We don't be insulting them and be thinking that a witch from our town or our village, or be thinking that somebody chanting on us or so forth. And as time goes by, we'll progress into some of the decisions we make, some of the things we say, some of the things we do, and just how children learn. We'll talk about some of these basic things, and we'll build up from there. So the very first topic will be trust versus mistrust. How does that happen? In what age group it happens, and so forth. And as time goes by, we'll build up on a lot of things that you will learn here free. I had a most recently, just for the next 1 or 2 minutes, let me give you this. I had a lady who called me about a complaint that her boy child was examined by one of the school counselor and was told that he got to get on medication. Oh, your child got to get on medication, and the child is having too much ADHD. She brought that complaint and she was crying about it. She's an African woman. She was crying about it, very disturbed, and what she could do. And I just laughed because the solutions are very simple. But we'll keep some of these things so that when we come, we can talk about them. Imagine your child coming to school and writing this big letter, or they sending this big email talking about your child has ADHD, and especially the boys' children. Now, keep in mind the gender matters. The gender matters, especially from a psychological standpoint or from a point of evaluation. When we do these psychological evaluation and testings, and gender matters, it makes a difference. And we'll tell you why the gender matters, and why when they tell you off the bat that your son needs to be put on medication or be in a special program or so forth, why you should tell them, don't bring that nonsense to me. Nope, I'm not going to agree. Why you should tell them? There's a lot of things that you might not know, that you might not be informed about. So we are here to, like we said, provide free education. We'll be here next Friday at the same time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, 4 o'clock Arizona time. Today we ran a little 1 hour, 30 minutes. Today was just a teaser. We talked about grief. We talked about the different stages of grief. We told you what grief is. For some of you who missed it, find the time to watch it. If you have any question, any concern, feel free to reach out to us so that we can, have these kind of conversations. But definitely next Friday we'll be here by the grace of God to have this conversation, trust versus mistrust. It starts from a very young age. So the way some people behave today, the reason why they behave the way they behave, we try to trace it back to their very young childhood, how they were raised, who raised them, and some of the things that were involved. We want to say thank you. Thank you for sticking and staying with us. If you're just following us, you are following us on SKTV. This is how we want to say happy weekend to you. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, stay out of drama, stay out of noise, and let's do what is right. Have a good weekend, and thank you. Tomorrow we'll be on SKTV. It will be mostly political about Liberia. So if you like politics too, and as time goes by, you will know why you are attracted to politics. Some of us. So we'll try to create this balance in our conversations. We'll definitely try to do that. And we'll try to provide the necessary education and information to you out there that, you can be empowered. And we'll, as time goes by, to be honest, we will talk about some of these different diagnoses and so forth. Not necessarily that you'll be licensed to be passing around diagnosing people, but at least you have the basic understandings and you will know what's going on when you see certain things. And you yourself will know how to react to certain people and act to certain people. You will know how to react to certain people and certain things. But thank you so much. This is how we want to close up. Thank you for your support. Thanks for your input. And we look forward to interactions, to calling next week. As time goes by, we'll be bringing people on the show. We'll be bringing 1 or 2 guests as well. We'll eventually get 1 or 2, apart from me and Telvi, we'll get 1 or 2 co-hosts to help us, especially bringing in gender balance, having lots of women to come and help into this conversation, giving women's perspective and getting men's perspective as well, in this area. There's a need for this conversation, so we will have it. Thank you, and thank you. We uno right to this song. We uno copyright to the song that we'll be playing here and the song that I've played. Thank you. Let's have a good weekend.
First time I saw your face, I knew I was in love. Baby, your smile takes my breath away. And they can say what I want, girl, I don't mind, as long as you're by my side. Baby, you smile of paradise. Baby, girl, come be my love life. How many times do you want me to say I love you? Cause then I tell the world I do. Even you want me, girl, I do. Baby, girl, come be my love life. Inikuma. Yega ampa ilikuwa. In any way, you will come on. How many times do you want me to say I love you? Cause when I tell the world I do.